In Korea's high-stakes gambling circles, there's one hard rule to prevent cheating. Everyone at the table has to strip down to their underwear. If anyone's caught cheating, the punishment is brutal, losing a hand or even a foot. But Dae-gil is different. He can detect even the tiniest clues in the cards to uncover any trick. How did he end up on this path of no return? Simple, he was born a gambler. At just 8 years old, he was using sleight of hand to win every card his classmates owned. As he grew up, he became unbeatable at every game in school. One fateful day, though, he met someone who'd change his life forever, Mina. The moment he saw her, Dae-gil was mesmerized by her beauty. When Mina left, he couldn't resist chasing after her and offering her the first flower he'd ever given anyone. But Mina just laughed and played a little trick on him.
형님, 오세요!
Her brother showed up, and Dae-gil ended up with a black eye, but he couldn't stop smiling, enchanted by her charm. Unfortunately, Dae-gil's family wasn't exactly clean-cut. One day, his grandfather was captured by casino enforcers over unpaid debts. In the brawl, Dae-gil accidentally stabbed Urion, the head of the casino. Knowing things were getting dangerous, Dae-gil's mother gathered some cash and told him to lay low for a while. Before he left, he found Mina one last time and promised her that when he came back, he'd be a man worthy of her and would marry her with pride.
청혼이냐?
그렇지.
이렇게 귀엽네.
키스할까?
아니,
다음에 하면 되지 뭐.
또 남대문 열렸다. 인사 잘하신다.
So, Dae-gil left town in a hurry, seeking refuge with his cousin, but his cousin wasn't exactly a model citizen either. He got Dae-gil a job at a local casino. This place was a well-oiled operation, with strict protocols even when police showed up for surprise inspections. There was a designated manager to line everyone up, smoothly directing guests to waiting cars for a quick exit. By the time the police arrived, the casino had already transformed into a meeting room, complete with a box of premium cigarettes as a gesture of goodwill. Dae-gil was blown away. His small-time schemes back home were nothing compared to this. To make ends meet, he started selling ramen at the casino, using his charm to win over the rich women who frequented the place. One day, a poker chip suddenly rolled under a pair of striking high heels. Dae-gil's gaze traveled up the woman's legs to her fiery red dress, and he was hooked. For the first time since Mina, he was stunned speechless by a woman's beauty. She walked up to Dae-gil with a seductive stride, handed him the chip, and left him lost in a daydream until his cousin pulled him back to reality. The boss had specifically asked to see Dae-gil. After 5 months of hard work, the boss had noticed Dae-gil's potential and decided to give him a chance to play at the table. Dae-gil didn't disappoint, wiping out every player who dared challenge him. From then on, there was no stopping him. Whether he faced monks or tycoons, no one could beat Dae-gil. Even the monks were left banging their prayer beads in frustration. The boss was thrilled, watching his earnings skyrocket with every game. Dae-gil quickly became the casino's star player, while his older cousin was stuck selling ramen. Even the woman he once admired from afar started going out with him. One drunken night, he mistook her for Mina, and their relationship deepened, leading to a new romance. But what Dae-gil didn't know was that his boss also had his eyes on this woman. The woman, Ji-yeon, was a wealthy widow who had inherited her late husband's fortune worth a staggering 10 billion won. The boss saw her as the perfect target for a scheme to swindle her out of that money. Naturally, he assigned Dae-gil to carry out this important mission. The plan was simple: let Ji-yeon win big at first, so she'd lose her self-control and get hooked. But as Dae-gil watched her winnings pile up, he grew increasingly uneasy. After all, Ji-yeon was his woman. In the end, Dae-gil couldn't go through with it. He found Ji-yeon and warned her about the boss's entire scheme. Before leaving, he even advised her to stay away from the casino. Still, Dae-gil didn't know Ji-yeon's full story. A few days later, she set up another poker game, but this time, she was the only outsider at the table. The group planned to finally corner her and take their winnings, but what should have been a guaranteed victory took an unexpected turn. Ji-yeon won every last chip, leaving the boss bankrupt and forcing him to shut down the casino. Dae-gil and his cousin had no choice but to look for new work. Soon, they met a bespectacled, heavy-set man named Jang Dong-sik, who happened to be a gambling enthusiast. The two brothers planned to win some money off him, but when Dong-sik's female partner walked in, Dae-gil was stunned. It was none other than Mina, the woman he'd never stopped thinking about.
둘이 알아요?
저 아세요?
아니요. 처음 보는 사람 처음 봐서.
As the sleazy Dong-sik let his hand fall on her, Mina got up, opened a window, and flashed a glimpse beneath her skirt, catching Dae-gil's gaze completely. Just like that, Dae-gil fell for the bait. From that moment, his winning streak ended. He not only lost all the cash he'd brought but also racked up nearly 1 billion won in debt. Facing the reality outside the door, Dae-gil had no choice but to press his fingerprint onto the debt contract. Mina left with the sleazy Dong-sik, but things took an even darker turn. Dong-sik turned out to know Dae-gil's former boss and even showed him proof of Dae-gil's relationship with Ji-yeon. The boss, suspecting that Dae-gil and Ji-yeon had conspired to scam him, ordered Dong-sik to capture him. Dae-gil lost a kidney in his right hand, chained up like a dog in his former boss's basement. Once he was freed, he wanted revenge, but then Dong-sik betrayed the boss, reporting him to the police to dodge responsibility. Since then, Dae-gil has been left to roam the streets, surviving on scraps and leftovers from others. Just then, Mina reappeared, offering him a hearty meal and some cash, urging him to leave this place. Dae-gil, still holding on to pride, wanted to refuse, but Mina dropped a brutal truth. His cousin had been in on the setup all along. When Mina distracted him with her skirt, his cousin and Dong-sik secretly swapped out the cards, sealing his fate. Enraged by his cousin's betrayal, Dae-gil still wanted revenge on Dong-sik, but Mina slapped him back to reality. In the end, he had to face the truth and boarded a bus out of town once more, defeated.
너 정말 이게 내 목숨 살린 거면 이제 이 목숨 네 거다.
But Dae-gil had no other skills to rely on, so he went back to his old ways, with his right hand injured. Though, his sloppy cheating methods were quickly spotted.
니는 장땡 만들어가 판쓰리 하려고 그랬지. 뭐하고 이게? 가만히 있어! 새끼가 이게 구라치다 걸리면 어떻게 되는지 뭐 들어서 알지?
누가 구라를 쳐, 미친 새끼야!
아저씨, 이제 패준 가보이소. 저 아저씨 손목 봤지? 장땡 나오는 순간 바로 저 아저씨랑 쎄쎄쎄 하면.
Dae-gil was sure he hadn't dealt the wrong cards, which could only mean the man across from him was a hidden master, with no hard evidence. They had to let Dae-gil go. Once outside, Dae-gil tracked the man down, seeing the thugs following behind. He placed a wad of cash in the man's hand, signaling they were now allies. As the goons closed in, the man had no choice but to run with Dae-gil. From that day on, Dae-gil stuck to him, determined to make him his mentor. Dae-gil played every card right, handling every social detail perfectly and winning over his mentor. The man finally agreed to take him on as an apprentice, but instead of teaching him tricks, he taught him the art of reading people, how slight shifts in a person's pupils or micro-expressions on their face could reveal their thoughts. They started small, observing various cheats and facial reactions at family poker games. Gradually, Dae-gil's skills grew sharper, and his technique matured. Then one day, he ran into his cousin, who was now down and out. Just as Dae-gil raised a club to strike him, his cousin blurted out the truth about the boss's scheme. It turned out that everything had been planned from the start. With everyone around Dae-gil working for the boss, he'd been the only one left in the dark. From the moment he set foot in the casino, he'd been a marked target. Even Ji-yeon had been planted by the boss to stay close to him, using seduction to manipulate Dae-gil for the boss's gain. But the worst part was yet to come. Mina, who had tried to save him, was betrayed and sold off by Jang Dong-sik to others. When Dae-gil learned that Mina had been sold off by Jang Dong-sik for saving him, he gathered all the cash he could and went to buy her freedom. But to his shock, the boss turned out to be none other than Uriah, the man he had once stabbed.
미나 어딨어? 허민아, 나한테 팔아.
Seeing the bag stuffed with cash, Uriah offered Dae-gil one chance. They would gamble for Mina's freedom. To prevent any cheating, one of each of their hands was locked in place. If Dae-gil wins, he'll leave his right hand behind and walk away with Mina. But if he lost, he'd leave his right hand behind and go alone. Mina went first, choosing her card. The highest card would win. When it was Dae-gil's turn, he ran his fingers slowly over the cards, watching for the slightest reaction in Mina's eyes. As her pupils subtly contracted, Dae-gil confidently picked his card. Mina flipped her card, a pair of nines. Uriah seemed sure of victory, but Dae-gil then revealed his own winning hand.
최양측 내놔. 손부터 찍고. 우호전 상황이래? 이긴 놈이 손 찍는 거라며. 누구 손 찍건 이긴 놈 맘이지. 이 정도는 손병신이 안 됐을 것 같냐?
Mina couldn't hold back her tears as she looked at the man who had once promised to marry her. She drew out a dagger, tore her own clothing into strips, and then wrapped Dae-gil's wound. Then Dae-gil calmly asked for a cigarette. As the two exchanged quiet words, Ryan lost his patience and moved forward to assert control. Dae-gil shoved him back, snatching Mina's contract from Ryan's pocket and using it to light his cigarette. But Ryan wasn't ready to let them go so easily. He made another demand, insisting that Mina stay unless they paid a new ransom of 500 million won. Before Dae-gil could react, his mentor suddenly appeared and coolly tossed over the 500 million. Still, Ryan tried to delay their escape, but the mentor, well-traveled and wise to these tricks, began rallying the watching gamblers, pointing out the casino's lack of integrity. The crowd started to grumble, and Ryan had no choice but to let them go. After returning, Mina lay in bed, asleep for 2 full days and nights. Dae-gil's mentor advised him to take Mina and live a normal life, warning him that this path could only lead to ruin. His own hand had been cut off by a man named Ague, and he didn't want Dae-gil to suffer the same fate. When Mina finally woke, the three of them enjoyed a brief period of peace together, but it wasn't to last. Jang Dong-sik soon found out that Mina had been rescued and sent his strongest enforcer after them. Dae-gil tried to fight back but was knocked down by 2 brutal punches. The mentor led Mina upstairs, and when the enforcer chased after them, he suddenly leapt out, grabbing the enforcer and jumping off the building with him. Fueled by rage, Dae-gil decided to take revenge. Gathering allies to strike back against Jang Dong-sik, he sought out Ji-yeon, proposing she use her beauty to seduce Jang Dong-sik and promising her half the reward. Ji-yeon agreed, knowing she owed Dae-gil for her past betrayal. Dressed provocatively, Ji-yeon tried to charm Jang Dong-sik, but he dismissively told her to leave.
치마 짧은 여자는 안 믿어요.
As she turned to go, she taunted him by pulling on his belt and asking if he was a eunuch, then stormed out, satisfied she'd accomplished her goal. Once Jang Dong-sik left, Dae-gil tracked his location using a hidden tracker Ji-yeon had placed on him. Following his route, Dae-gil discovered a stash of cash hidden away. He took half for himself and reported the rest to the police, making Jang Dong-sik a wanted man. The next day, Dae-gil and Mina met with Ji-yeon, who unexpectedly asked Dae-gil to leave with her, but he told her Mina was pregnant. Ji-yeon left with her money, but jealousy burned in her eyes as she turned away. True to form, Ji-yeon then sought out Jang Dong-sik and helped him capture 2 of Dae-gil's allies. To rescue them, Dae-gil showed up with money but poured gasoline over the cash as soon as he arrived, forcing Jang Dong-sik to release his friends first. However, Dae-gil had no intention of handing over the cash. He lit it on fire, and as the flames died down, Jang Dong-sik realized it had all been fake bills. Enraged, he gave chase with his man. Dae-gil taunted him with a friendly gesture as he fled, but as they turned a corner, a car suddenly crashed into them. In the chaos, Jang Dong-sik managed to grab the money and escape. When Dae-gil came to, he saw Mina covered in blood. She had lost the baby. Jang Dong-sik and Ji-yeon arrived at a remote dock.
고마워요. 그년 놈들 작살내줘서.
Without saying a word, Jang Dong-sik stepped out of the car only to be grabbed from behind and blindfolded. It was yet another setup orchestrated by Ji-yeon, who had teamed up with Ryan to pull a double cross. After the ambush, Ji-yeon and Ryan started talking about their bright future together. To celebrate, Ryan pulled out 2 bottles of drinks, but as Ji-yeon took a sip, she passed out. Later dumped in a trash heap, Ryan clearly had no loyalty to anyone. Ryan took the money and went to see his uncle, Ague, the same man who had once severed Dae-gil's mentor's hand. Examining the cash, Ague quickly noticed something odd and dumped it onto the ground, revealing a hidden tracker inside the box. By now, Dae-gil had tracked the location, intending to kill Jang Dong-sik, but was surprised to come face to face with his mentor's old enemy, Ague. Just then, Jang Dong-sik appeared and immediately dropped to his knees before Ague, suggesting they shared some history. The wily Ague proposed a high-stakes solution fitting for their situation. Since it had all started over gambling, they'd settle it with a game. Whoever lost would face the consequences and leave it at that. With the showdown set, Dae-gil returned with Mina and her brother, while Jang Dong-sik brought the discarded Ji-yeon. Each side chose 2 players, with Ague himself making the 5th. Since Jang Dong-sik lacked the skill to cheat and feared others might try, he proposed a drastic measure: everyone would strip down to ensure no one had any tricks. Hearing this, Ji-yeon wasted no time, shedding her clothes faster than anyone. The others followed suit, reluctantly preparing for the ultimate gamble. But soon after the game began, Ji-yeon started making her own sly moves. Dae-gil noticed a reflection in Jang Dong-sik's glasses, subtly signaling that something was up. This wasn't just a test of skill, It was a battle of wits. Ague revealed his hand, first a pair of 4s, but the others hesitated. Annoyed, he hit an alarm button, and guards burst in, flipping over everyone's cards and exposing the exact values. It turned out that Jian had brought in marked cards, and she was promptly detained. As she was taken away, she accused Jang Dong-sik of giving her the cards. Yu Ryan pulled out a gun, ready to execute he on the spot, but was quickly overpowered, losing his weapon. With the tables turned, the game had to continue. Ague then began taunting Dae-gil's mentor, hoping to provoke him. Dae-gil, enraged, made his move. He discreetly pulled an extra card and, under the guise of lighting a cigarette, slipped it under Mina's seat. But Ague, sharp-eyed, caught this subtle move and demanded they raise their hands.
장 사장은
8땡 주셨네요.
그리고 너는 장땡 잡고 이 판 묵으려 그랬지. 배팅들 하셔야지.
자, 삥 갑니다.
삥 받고 레이스. 네 패가 장땡이라는 거에 내 돈 모두하고 내 모가지를 건다. 너는 무엇을 골라?
싫다면 싫으면 시집가 이 새끼야. 너 어디 가서 농담 같은 거 하지 마라.
Unfazed, Dae-gil went all in, and Mina followed suit. When it came time to reveal the cards, Dae-gil's hand was just a 10. Though he lost the game, he'd won their side bet. Mina then took action, slipping aside and removing everything she wore. The marked card disappeared. Dae-gil covered her with his jacket, and Ague, instead of taking their lives, simply took all the money on the table. But Ague wasn't willing to let Dae-gil go so easily. Just as he tried to detain them, Mina's brother suddenly opened fire, taking out several of Ague's men, including Jang Dong-sik, who was riddled with bullets. However, Mina's brother was seriously injured in the fight. As they made their way out, her brother unexpectedly turned his gun on them, intending to keep all the money for himself. Ague witnessed this act of betrayal, but he and Dae-gil could only stand by and watch as Mina's brother drove away. After reaching the city, Mina's brother opened the trunk and scattered the cash onto the streets before succumbing to his injuries. He had left behind just enough money, hidden away, to secure Mina and Dae-gil's future, ensuring Ague would never know the total amount. Mina mourned over her brother's ashes, only to receive a package he had arranged to be delivered. In a final act of love, he had devised this plan to protect them from Ague, scattering the money as a distraction so they could escape without reprisal. With that, Dae-gil retired from the gambling world and became a legendary figure known as Korea's Hand of God. Yet the fate of the card he'd once slipped under Mina's seat remains a mystery to this day.